Hello guys, welcome to the Forgetful Scholar, and this week we're going to chat about one book. I only got one book done. And it's Revisit. So last week I was kind of disappointed about the Enemies to Lovers book that I read. So I went to my favorite Enemies to Lovers book. Also, the first romance novel I ever read with the enemies to lover trope, so it's kind of that book's fault why it's like one of my favorite tropes. I was planning on reading another book, but okay, long story longer. I was at an event and they had jalapeno poppers, delicious, and of course me, the way my luck is, I grabbed one random one that still wasn't completely shelled out, so it had a little bit of the seeds in it, so it was a little spicy. It went up in one eye, made one eye water, my throat dried up, and then went in the other eye and disappeared. And I was like, okay, cool. It'll just be, uncomfortable a little while it makes its way through. No big deal. Then 45 minutes later, I got a migraine. Migraine started. I'm not saying the popper gave me a migraine, but I'm also not saying. So that's why I only read the one book. And I also still have, the headache after the migraine is always it feels so different. It feels like my brain is sore and oh, that's what a headache is, blah, blah, blah. But if you have migraines, you kind of know what I mean. The headache after the migraine, it just has this weird different feel to it. I can't explain it. And I don't know why I'm mentioning it. Anyway. So I read Defy Not the Heart by Johanna Lindsey. It was published, cute dog. It was published in 1989, so it's 35 years old. Yeah, that's the Wild West of romances. That's before trigger warnings and stuff. And I've read some Johanna Lindsey's ones where the book was just, it belongs in the dark romance section because basically it was just essaying left and right. Listen, I get it, especially if you want to get into reading older romance novels. I get how it's a minefield because a lot of them are really messed up. And today, if they were published, it would be dark romance and have all these trigger warnings and stuff like that. But this one takes place, I think, in the 12th century, the Middle Ages. So there's a lot of knights and there's a lot of sword fighting. Nothing gory, you know what I mean? Nothing gory. So our main two characters, well, the book is 411 pages. And, this is always a 5-star for me. And reading it again, I haven't read it in a couple years. And reading again, it's still a 5-star. It's the first 200 pages go by so fast. And I didn't even realize I was already oh shoot, I'm already half done. It goes by so fast. And like I said, it's an Enemies to Lovers. And my first romance book I ever read, Enemies to Lovers. So I get that nostalgia is probably, completely, nostalgia's completely probably affecting my opinion about this book. I don't care though. I still love it. So it starts off Lady Rena, her keep or castle, if that helps you visualize it a little bit better, is under siege, is under attack by a group of knights that they don't have a flag or colors or anything, so they don't know who's attacking her, right? And and this is also one of the romance novels I like where the heroine of the book, even though in description I think she's probably stunning, but everyone around her calls her kind of plain, and except the hero, right? Calls her plain and stuff like that. So she's small, and the way they describe her stature is later on she gets confused for a 14-year-old boy, So I think she's between 4'11", 5 foot, something like that, right? So she's in armor because she's on the wall tending to her wounded. So she's covered in their blood and stuff like that. And the head of the guard of the keep refused to let her go out. But Rena, she's one of my favorite females too, because she is hot-tempered, bossy, intelligent, and logical. And I know hot-tempered and logical usually don't go hand in hand. She has a temper, but she's also doesn't like just scream at the top of her lungs. You know, when she loses her temper, like she internalizes it and then like figures out how she could get her own back, which love it. Anyway, he refused to let her go out unless she was wearing armor just to keep her safe. And that's important for the meet cute later, right? So she's like in the middle of this battle, and that's how the book starts, which is always so much fun. And like she's tending to the wounded, and she's like barking orders, and she's really close to her manservant Theo, who's like a brother from another mother. Like they're super close. They're like besties, right? And she calls him like a lummox and insults him. And there's this orphan boy that she's really close to who has a lame leg, and like he's trying to help. Like she's like frantic, and in her point of view, you feel how frantic she is because you get frantic reading it, right? So we're gonna leave that, and then a group of knights that they never met before, but the leader of them is this giant of a man. Comes in and defeats the knights that were attacking the castle. And she's like, oh, they must be from Lord Guy. Please let them in and get refreshments while I get cleaned up because I can't meet them covered in blood and armor. That's not proper, And Lord Guy, let's see if I can explain this. Think of it as a pyramid scheme. Lord Guy's at the top, like under like the king, you know what I mean? He's on the top, and then Rena and her holdings, she's very rich. Like she has a lot of holdings, a lot of rich farmland, a lot of good wood mills. Like she's good, right? So they give like a percentage of their income to Lord Guy, right? So it's sort of like that, what I meant, like a pyramid scheme, right? And Lord Guy was her father's friend, and her father died during the Crusades with King Richard. So that's what I'm saying, it's about 12th century. Although this is a romance book, not a history book, so a lot of things were like, Like she has a mirror, and I was like, I don't think so, but it's fine. Again, history book, like it's a romance book, not a history book, right? So these men come charging in and save them from the attacking knights, right? Cool. So, and she goes, I have to get cleaned up, I have to, do all these things, make sure they're welcome. And she runs. And then we're in, actually, we don't switch to the guy's point of view yet. Now, I do want to make a point of talking about this because I've read other romance novels where something like this would really piss me off. And this is why I'm saying, like, probably nostalgia is clouding my, opinion a little bit. But I don't mind the scene for certain reasons. Okay, so we get this one-time POV of a S-worker that follows the camp, which the knights that ran off the other knights belongs to, right? And she woke up from a night with the main guy, right? And she's saying, like, she has a crush on him, right? And, like, all the other, I think they're called camp chasers, are jealous of her because she's the only S-worker that he ever spends a night with. And she's like, they wouldn't be jealous if they know, like, he doesn't even know her name, right? He's not mean to her, he just doesn't, connect with her. Like, he doesn't really, it's a business transaction, you know what I mean? And I don't really know why we get her POV of that. Like, I understand, like, maybe, because, like, 2 chapters later, Rena runs into the SA worker, because, not SA, but S worker, because she, waits for the main guy in his tent, even though he didn't call her. And I think it's to make Rena sort of feel insecure, because, again, everybody else except the hero calls Rena plain, mousy, even though she has like jet black hair and like grayish blue eyes. I'm like, she sounds gorgeous to me, but whatever. To make her like feel insecure, I guess, but it's still a weird thing. And there have been books that I torn apart where, and I guess this was like a theme or like the thing to do at this time of writing romance novels, because I read some where we come in the guy's POV and he's with an S worker. But those books I didn't like because it seemed like the hero was more connected to the S worker. Like he had more conversations with the S worker than he does with the female romantic lead. He's vulnerable with the S worker when he's not with the, I'm looking at you, Lisa Kleypas. Like, they did not do those situations well. But this one, I think it's good because he doesn't really care about her. It's a business transaction and he never visits her or calls for her service again, right? It's still a weird thing. So I wonder if that was like the trend when this book came out, right? So we have that weird kind of POV, and then we go to the hero's POV, and I'm not going to pronounce it right, just telling you right now, but Ranulph Fitzhugh, he's the main guy, and he's the giant knight. Everyone always calls him, he's a giant. So I'm thinking he's like 6'4", 6'5", especially back then when people were on the shorter side. It was, probably did seem like a giant. I don't think he's like 7 feet or anything like that, He was leading the knights that ran off the other knights that were attacking Rena's keep. She thinks they're from Lord Guy, and he doesn't correct them, right? So they're in the keep, and they're being treated really well, and she hasn't come back yet. And he's like, where is she? And he's like a big guy, huge muscles, and he's scaring the crap out of everybody because he wants to know where Lady Rena is. Like, he is like focused on that, right? And he has a band of merry knights that I really like all of them. Walter, his best friend. He has a couple knights he trained up that are knights now. Like, he has a squire. Like, and all the secondary friend characters, I like them. I like Theo. I like them. I like another servant she has. I think it's Amelia. I like all of them. Like, the secondary characters, fantastic. And they feel like full-fledged, rich characters on their own, right? Which I really enjoy when a writer does this, right? Love it so much. So, because it makes the world feel bigger, and it doesn't... Because I find books that have, like, hollowed out, one-dimensional secondary characters, it kind of feels like a bad Hallmark movie. You know what I mean? So I like when they're rich and they're complicated as well. But don't take over the book, and they don't take over the book. So he's bellowing, where is Lady Rena? And he decides to go looking himself, right? And everyone assumes that he's worried for her safety. Sure, even Theo, who is her chambermaid, because Theo's gay, love that. I always, like, when I first read that, I was like, oh, cool, a little bit of representation in 1989 in a book take place in the Middle Ages. That's interesting. And Rena, like, adores him. She doesn't think anything's wrong with him, and she would rather kick people out of the keep than discriminate against Theo. You know what I mean? It's like, she's a real one. She's a girl's girl. She's a real one. I like her. So he runs into Rena, but he doesn't know it's Rena because she's still in the bloodied armor. And he assumes it's like a squire, 14-year-old or something like that. And he picks her up and shakes her like, where's Lady Rena? Because he's had it, right? And it isn't until he looks through the helmet and sees, oh, it's a woman. And, like, the thing is, he's so surprised he drops her. And the armor's so heavy she can't get back up. And they, like, that's how, and she's not really mad. She's stunned too, because guess what, guys? Ranulph, gorgeous, like, golden mane, muscular, tanned, handsome, violet eyes, gorgeous, strong jaw, you know what I'm saying? So she's kind of stunned how good looking he is, and then she falls and she can't get back up because of the armor, right? And you realize that that's like Lady Rena. And I love Ranulph because he is not smooth. He just is not smooth at all, right? And he's like, you shouldn't wear armor if you can't carry the weight. And he picks her up and takes her up the stairs to where her chamber is. He doesn't go into her chamber, just to the landing. And he puts her back down so she could go, take clothes off and get cleaned. So they're both kind of like embarrassed and frazzled a bit. But she's like, I'm just going to blow it off. Because, I'm a real bitch and I got things to do, right? So she gets cleaned up really hurriedly, and she asks Theo, like, what does she think of him? And Theo's like, he seems to be really invested in your safety, things like that. So she comes back down, and she teases him a little bit. And again, Randolph's not a ladies' man. Like, women throw themselves at him, but he does not know. Like, he's so awkward. And I always love that about him. He's so awkward. And, like, he takes the teasing as, like, an insult, so he he's embarrassed and he doesn't like her, right? And then soon the enemies part comes up. I'm like so excited. So, I love this trip so much. Okay, so, they have a meal. She finds out a little bit about them, but not like who sent them. She goes to bed. She gets kidnapped. They kidnap her. They were hired by one of her neighbors that wants to marry her forcibly to kidnap her. And the thing is, I forgot to mention, she's like 20, which in this time period, 20 and not married was like, whoa. Because you could be widowed at 20, but like not, because usually when you first get if you're a woman of stature with wealth titles and land like she is, when you get your period, that's when your father starts looking for a match for you, right? So the fact that she's 20 is kind of unusual, but I like that she wasn't a teenager. 20's still a baby, yeah, but like, she's a boss bitch. She's been running her father's estates for years, since he went off to the crusade and died in the crusade. So she's been basically taking care of her people, everything all by herself. And she's got a lot of property, like a lot. She's like an heiress, and it was just her. And she's really incredible, you know what I mean? And her people love her, like she's awesome. So they kidnap her for this guy that wants to marry her for her holdings and stuff. And she was kind of holding out for her other neighbor because he's more her age and he's nice and they're friends, and she was gonna marry him, you know what I mean? So they kidnap her, put her in a rug, roll her out, completely undignified. She's pissed off. She hates him. She feels betrayed. He's annoyed because she's not acting like how other women would act and be all scared. And she's more like, because like she gets rolled up and she's just pissed. She's not scared. She's not worried. Well, she is scared and worried, but like her anger is more, like I'm like, girl, I love you. So she's just pissed, and he's pissed that she's pissed. He's like, she should be more compliant. I'm scary, grr. And she's like, nah, I'm not scared of you. I'm too valuable to her. You know what I mean? And she knows her worth. And it's a great scene, right? Where like, and honestly, if you really look at it, okay, she has a reason to really hate him, but he's like, why does he hate her so much? Because she keeps embarrassing him, and she keeps getting like the last word and kind of one-upping him in verbal chess, and he's pissed because of that, right? Especially at this time period, like, because if you really think about it, a woman being like ballsy at that time period, like, witch, murder at the stake, you know what I'm saying? So when you're reading it, you really get into it. Even if it's like your 5th time reading it, whatever. You really see how like I'm like smiling and all giddy. You really get into it, and you feel the animosity. And Walter, his best friend, is like, because she knows marriage isn't about love, at least for her. You know what I mean? And back then, marry for love. What are you kidding me? Is that even a thing? No. So for her, she knows it's a business transaction, and she wants what's best for her people. So Walter is like, hey, my man here, he don't got any other holdings. Look how strong and capable he is. He could protect all your land and your people. Wouldn't that be great, And she's like, because he makes good points for her, because that's all she cares about is her people and their safety, which is another another tick in the I adore her box, right? And she's like, yeah, he would be really good because, he doesn't have any other holdings to distract himself from her people. He's really strong and capable. The thing is, Ranulph never thought of that. He's doing all this mercenary work so he could buy a small parcel of land so he could retire. He doesn't think, he's kind of thrown for a loop because he's a Fitz, which means he's a bastard, right? He's a bastard of Lord Hugh. That's what the Fitzhugh means. So he's like, why would you do this? And she's like, I don't care, you're a bastard, who cares? But because Walter's been talking in his ear too, like, hey man, why don't you marry her, man? You get all this land. And like, I think because you're not in Walter's POV or anything, But I like to believe that Walter saw the spark between those two and was like, I'm gonna be a good wingman on this, right? And so they get married, and he wants to make it perfectly clear that he's a bastard, and if he dies, everything should go back to her family, not his. He doesn't want Lord Hugh getting anything, you know? And she turns out to be even more of an heiress than I thought, and like, Reynolds actually pissed about that. Like, he's like, man, like, how much do you owe? Like, shit. And they're having bandits that always attack her. Keep, this a lot of stuff happens, right? And again, this book flies by. I just love it. So, and this is like, they return back to the keep, and she's married. And it's like, this is in the middle of the book. 200 pages are also flown by. So I'm going to try to summarize quick because, like, I thought, oh, this would be a short video, but it's already gone longer than I thought. So, there's so much that happens. And I enjoy them being married and kind of falling in love, and we follow them through it, right? There's a misunderstanding with another prostitute because he's afraid to touch her like how he wants because he thinks he's going to hurt her because she's so small. So little compared to him. So, like, so he catches her with the prostitute. He doesn't do anything. Like, he doesn't cheat on her, but she thinks it. And she tries, like, she's pissed, but she's trying to work it in her best interest because she was also raised that, like, men aren't going to be faithful. But don't worry, girl. You're the only one he wants, right? And I love that he calls her his little general because, yes, little general, because she's so bossy and she doesn't care. She's like, look, my people need this, so we're going to do this. That's not how we do this here. And, like, she orders him around because she can't help it, too, because she's been in charge for, like, 6 years. You know what I mean? And I just love how he teases her and calls her his little general. It's so cute, you know? She calls him a lummox, and that's how he knows that she loves him because she only says that to people she loves. So it's such a cute thing. And he has issues with ladies because when he was young and stupid, he fell in love with, I think her name was Lady Anne. And they had a baby girl at wedlock, and he wanted to marry her. She turned him down, and she gave the baby to a very poor family. And by the time he tracked down the baby, she died of starvation. So, like, he kind of hates ladies for that. And, like, what I like about this author, when the guy is really wary of women, like, there is a good reason. Like, it's not just for whatever. Like, they've been hurt, you know, in the past. And there is a good reason for them to be wary, you know. So, and then, oh my gosh, and then Lady Anne actually has the nerve to show up at his keep. I mean, it's unbeknownst to her, and she's talking to Rena's like, oh, my Ranulph is here. I knew it. And she's like, and Rena's like, excuse me? Like, internally, she's like, that's my husband. You couldn't possibly have meant what you said, right? She did. She tries to cause trouble, right? And the thing is, like, Ranulph is like, I'm not going to help you. It's such a great scene for him, like, especially, like, the petty part of me is like, ooh, I love that scene where he, like, puts her in her place and is, like, not going to fall for her charms, right? And he has, like, father issues because since the moment he was born, he was given to the blacksmith, and the blacksmith was abusive, and then he was fostered for knighthood, and that man was really abusive. Like, it's vague detail, but you get it, right? So he wants something to do with his father because his father never contacted him, nothing, right? And it turns out that the father's super proud of him and loved him from the beginning, but his father, like Ranulph's grandfather, kept them apart because he wanted his son to marry someone else. So the grandfather's kind of the evil one, and Hugh's been keeping, like, an eye on him. Like, one of Ranulph's people is actually a spy for the father, but they loved the life so much, and they adored Ranulph as a boss, like a lord, so much that they decided to stick with him. You don't find who it is, but that's fine. And there's this kind of beautiful reunion, and, like, I love Rena's, like, you're not gonna hurt my husband. Like, she's a tiny little thing. She's like, And he's like, I assure you, lady, like, the scene is so great because I love how she stands up for him because, like, he's a big badass knight, but, like, emotionally, he's a mess, right? And she's like, you're not gonna hurt my husband. I'll cut you. Like, she's great. And turns out the man that she considered marrying is actually Ranulph's half brother, another bastard. and he was behind the knights that attacked him in the first place. Oh my gosh. Ranulph is not surprised there's another bastard son. He didn't care. Like, the brother, he's pissed. Ranulph's pissed because he thought Rena knew they were brothers. She's like, I had no idea. But he gets, like, unreasonably jealous. It's kind of a sexy scene, you know what I mean? Fun spot in that scene. Anyway, but she had no idea, and it turns out he was the one that tried to kidnap her with the knights and the keep and everything. He's like, I didn't think you would marry a bastard. And she's like, what do I care? So he gets even more, because it turns out he's spoiled and horrible and everything, right? There's so many twists and turns in this book, and this book is so filled. Like, he tracks down the bandits, they turn out to be from the brother's keep, and then the father actually goes to the keep and see, like, how starved the people are, and the mismanagement, everything like that. So, like, he gets his, the evil brother gets his, but it's, like, so much going on. So, like, it's not boring. Like, this book's nothing, there's no boring part. Like, yes, they get married in the middle of their story, but, like, it does not slow down. And it is so much fun. And I am going to stop talking now because, wow, I can't believe I gushed over one book this long. Anyway, I don't want to. It's time for me to get back to the real world. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye.